さて、どこから行こうか。
Hey boss, a lot of people are noticing that Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2, Episode 18 may not release as scheduled. And boy is it causing a lot of confusion amongst the fanbase. For those in the know, they were expecting at least 23 episodes spanning throughout the end of December. Luckily, we may be at the best place on the internet to explain exactly what is happening with the second season of arguably the world's most popular anime. How could the production studio behind some of the world's hottest anime, such as Chainsaw Man, Attack on Titan Final Season, Hajime no Ippo, Hell's Paradise, and Vinland Saga Season 2, be so cash-strapped that they are basically betting the company on the success of JJK Season 2? What does that mean for the animators that are working on JJK, and what type of system led to the working conditions that these animators faced? And who's to blame for that system? What is it like to have work-life balance that is so bad? And most importantly, what can be done to fix the issues?
Did he just touch? Need a hand?
I obviously have a lot to cover, but before we do, please take some time to like and subscribe, as I'll always bring you some of the most topical looks into global business as it relates to anything in the geekdom. Now, without further ado, let's get straight into it. As you will see later on, although many of the issues that led to this situation are systemic issues, the production company in question right now is known as Mappa. And despite their size, the company is responsible for a lot of the most popular anime in the world. The Maruyama Animation Produce Project Association is a Japanese animation studio established in June of 2011. It is simultaneously one of the fastest growing and recognizable production companies in anime. Mappa was founded by Masao Murayama, one of the co-founders of the larger and more established Studio Madhouse. Although Mappa was started to disrupt certain aspects of the Japanese anime making process, the studio also inherited a lot of practices from Madhouse and the rest of the industry. Most important to our topic today, Mappa did not innovate on how Japanese production companies make money. The system that allows a studio like Mappa, with a lot of very popular, very successful anime under its belt, to struggle when it comes to actually making profits is something that they inherited from the beginning. Guys, it is very important to understand that unlike production companies in the United States that have the ability to profit greatly from any single success, Japanese production companies almost function as a non-profit. Now, I'm sure you're wondering why that is. Put it simply, Japanese production companies that have been engaged to create an anime actually function as a subcontractor of the project. Furthermore, the TV stations that air the anime and the advertisers who buy ad slots function as investors in the project. Now, what does this mean and why does it matter? It means that when a production studio like Mappa produces an anime, the TV stations and advertisers agree to cover the cost of production for Mappa. In exchange, any profits above that cost are divided by the TV stations and advertisers, much in the same way investors are entitled to any profits. This being the case, it does not matter how many hit anime Mappa produces, they are only going to recoup their cost. Profit is generally out of the question. As I'm sure many of you can imagine, trying to run a company with limited routes to making a profit can prove to be really difficult. And because production companies do not own the licensing or merchandising rights to the anime that they produce, studios like Mappa often find themselves making others a lot of money while barely treading water themselves. The exception to this rule being that studios generally do get the profit from sales of physical copies of the anime. For example, Blu-ray discs or DVDs. Going back to why this is important, this dynamic puts a huge amount of pressure on the very few names that are so popular that they are actually able to deliver some profit to the company. projects like Attack on Titan Final Season, and of course, JJK Season 2. This pressure is what led to the policies that created the work conditions that the animators at Mappa have been experiencing over the last year or so. Conditions so bad that they have drawn global attention. Executives tend to hate situations like this, where money and business meet real life. Having found themselves in a situation where the most important title of the year needs to meet tight, weekly deadlines, and being unwilling to pay for more animators to lighten the workload, the executives decided that the best idea is to just tell their talented team of animators to figure it out. After all, that is exactly what they have been doing for over a year. Kushigami Itsuki, a prominent animator for JJK, expressed his disapproval in a series of tweets, partially blaming the animators' quick turnaround of the movie JJK 0 for setting an unrealistic precedent for how fast they could animate. Arai Kazuto, director of JJK Season 2, Episode 13, also shared his frustration by tweeting. While cryptic, many speculate that this tweet is in direct response to the news that Mappa executives refused the delay that the animators requested. Those of you that have had a project or deal-based job might be able to imagine how exhausting it would be to put 100% effort into a project that, although it turns out great, it was barely finished a few hours before everyone on your team saw it. And immediately after turning that project in, you have to start on another project with another very tight deadline that requires more long nights and 100% effort. All that with the knowledge that when you are done, you will have to do it all over again, down to turning the project in hours before it's due. Now imagine the pressure you might feel knowing that each of these projects has to be perfect, or else the company you work for and your livelihood will be very negatively affected. But yet, you can't help feeling the long nights taking their toll on you. Most people couldn't make it through 10 days like that, let alone 18 weeks. Shunsuke Okubo, another director for JJK Season 2, specifically Episode 12, also posted a distressing image from a show called Shirobako, an anime that ironically highlights the intense schedules that animators have to endure. This image is of an animator in the anime tying a noose around her neck. The symbolism here is pretty clear. I can personally tell you that being in a situation where your work-life balance isn't quite balancing, there's very few things that feel worse than that. Pretty sure that feeling is up there with heartbreak and stubbing your toe for some of the worst feelings you can have. Alright guys, now we've talked ad nauseum about the issues that Mappa is currently facing and how those could lead to the postponement of the rest of JJK Season 2. But it wouldn't be a GWS video if I didn't take the time to solve the issue for Mappa. After all, we all need our JJK fix. Now just to be clear, I mostly plan on addressing the root cause of the issue, which is Mappa's financial and corporate position. If you fix that, then they will be in position to hire more animators and address the work-life balance of their employees while also meeting their deadline. I'll start with an idea that Mappa has already implemented once before, but one that needs to be a part of their strategy moving forward for all of their bigger projects. That is, Mappa has to invest a sizable amount of capital into all of their biggest projects alongside the TV stations and advertisers. In a lot of situations, it would actually behoove them to be the only investor point blank. This will finally enable them to profit from their own productions and directly share in the success of their animations. As I mentioned earlier, Mappa has already begun to experiment with this idea as they were the sole investors in Chainsaw Man, one of their most well-known and successful productions. In fact, Mappa's current CEO, Manabu Otsuka, stated that the company invested all of the production costs for Chainsaw Man, and although they did not sell as many physical copies as they would have liked, the project was still very financially successful. Of course, this introduces new risks to Mappa. If for some reason one of their anime that they invest in flops, they may never recoup their money. But let's keep in mind that every production company in the United States bears that exact same risk, and that is why they are capable of being wildly profitable ventures. One successful product could make up for multiple failed attempts. In fact, that's the principle that most big production companies rely on. And even if Mappa only invested in their biggest projects and left the smaller ones as they are, they would see a huge upward swing in their profits. Next, Mappa has to focus on understanding the power of its brand as well as the brands that it works with. This will enable it to deliver outsized value to both the project as well as to itself as a company. Mappa, as a medium-sized animator, is not experienced in managing the licensing and merchandising planning for their projects. This represents a huge financial opportunity for them because if they not only learn to manage licensing and merchandising, but they start adding tremendous value on that front, they could unlock a brand new revenue stream for their company. Licensing and merchandising is usually the most profitable part of any successful anime, so even a small profit sharing deal would completely change the financial situation at Mappa and likely turn the studio from medium sized to large. On that same note, a mistake that the studio can no longer afford to make is thinking that its brand won't be tarnished by controversy such as this one. The welfare of their animators will be directly tied to the quality and quantity of work that they produce. This debacle needs to serve as a wake-up call for the Mappa execs that created the situation in the first place. In this case, the JJK production committee did not want to opt for a planned delay, so now they may be facing an unplanned delay. Using Japanese and industry culture as an excuse for not providing livable work conditions is no longer going to be a viable business move. Instead, if Mappa wants to survive this ordeal, they're going to have to innovate the industry work standards in much the same way that they innovated animation. When it comes to controversy in entertainment, whether it be complaints from fans, employees, directors, or even stars, you can usually track the source of the controversy back to the financial position of the business or project. If you understand the money, you'll truly understand the problem, and you'll be able to be that much closer to fixing the issue. Alright? This has been your friendly neighborhood banker, GWS, and thank you for letting me insert my 2 cents into this conversation.